Thomas Jefferson is the third entry in this Made America 250 series where I'm trying to highlight people, places, and projects that made America the 250-year-old social entity that it is. The United States of America was one of the first post-myth nations. And when you read the Declaration of Independence, you can see that it contains many themes and ideas that are common in the founding of many other nations. Just declaring that they need to establish a new way of governing that is preferable to the previous levels of tyranny, discord, and other negative states that exist at the time. But one thing that is different than other previous nations is that the United States of America doesn't track its founding to these mythological scenarios carried out by supernatural beings that initiated some sort of divinely predestined existence. Yes, there's manifest destiny and things like that, but you can see in these papers, these documents of the founding, that this was founding fathers, very human people who tried to sort things out in a constitution that still had to have amendments from the break with the Bill of Rights. These are not infallible texts where debating if X meant Y because of Z was considered blasphemous, but rather it was written into its founding that changes can be made by the humans that constitute that nation. That's part of what I'm trying to sort out in this series. If this is a project started by some people in a place that became the United States of America, is it a great thing? And what changes, if any, need to be made to continue this? What changes were made to the initial idea that made America the 250-year-old nation that it is? To go along with Thomas Jefferson, I'm going to read the Declaration of Independence, the transcription from the archives.gov. You can follow along, and I've also done a different version of this called the Declaration of Your Dependence, just about the state of the United States of America, where there's so many people who don't really seem to understand what I think this document was declaring. They're more for what can the government do for me, like John F. Kennedy said, instead of what can they do for their country, or what can they do as people of their country. I think that's even more accurate. Americans have access to certain things from the Constitution, that basis that I read on the previous part going on with James Madison. You can see what was in there. You can see what the Constitution was following this Declaration of Independence. Then I'm going to read the Bill of Rights after, again, to see what things that you're supposed to be able to do. Some of the key parts of America is these laws, these structures in the governing system, in the state system, in the government of the United States of America was also unique in a way that it was about what the government is not allowed to do. The limitations of the government says you can't do this, you can't do that, you cannot do this, you should not be able to do that. And then everything else was supposed to be the liberty, the freedom that the people can do to pursue happiness in that kind of way. That's kind of the basic thing, yet you can see how the country is. And right now, as I'm recording this, there's a rise of socialism, and then you have people on the political right being like, what's going on? How is this happening? I'm like, you're Republicans, you're socialists too. You're on the spectrum. There's one spectrum of liberty and freedom on one side, all the way on the right, you can put it that way. And then on the left, it's just communism. No private property, no freedom. The state does everything. And the spectrum between those two is not any sort of free market capitalism. It's all socialism. It's all the government doing more and more and more. And the Republicans are just as socialist as the Democrats were 25 years ago. All this stuff is going that way. You have been teaching people that they should rely on a continued growth of the government. You've taught many Americans through public schooling systems that it's okay to fund systems by taking money from people and redistributing that to other people and compelling children to go to one location. This is supposed to be some honorable thing that we praise the system for. And now you're surprised that the people who've come through that system are now demanding more growth of government, more government control, when that's what you told them was good. That's what you told them they should strive for. Anyway, so reading the Declaration of Independence right now, starting off. In Congress, July 4th, 1776. The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America, when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such a government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having indirect object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions of the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers incapable of annihilation have returned to the people at large for their exercise. The state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions from within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and to eat out their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. For quartering bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English law in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example of and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage, these oppressions we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured upon them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must, therefore, acquiesce to the necessity which denounces our separation, and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. We therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. So that was it. That was the reading of the transcription of the Declaration of Independence, which was presented in Congress in the United States of America. Well, before the United States of America. That started the United States of America, July 4th, 1776. And yeah, there's some, I think, objectively great things that have come from it. Subjectively, not so great, and also some great depending on the things. And then some, I think, are negative. There's some negative things that resulted from this. But that's part of what this America 250 series is, me just trying to figure out and sort these things out. Now I'm going to read the signatories of the Declaration of Independence, and this was different individuals from the 13 states that united together to create the social political entity that is the United States of America. From Georgia, Button Gwinnett, Lyman Hall, George Walton. From North Carolina, William Hooper, Joseph Hughes, John Penn. From South Carolina, Edward Rutledge, Thomas Hayward Jr., Thomas Lynch Jr., Arthur Middleton. From Massachusetts, John Hancock. From Maryland, Samuel Chase, William Paca, Thomas Stone, Charles Carroll of Carrollton. From Virginia, George Wythe, Richard Henry Lee, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Harrison, Thomas Nelson Jr., Francis Lightfoot Lee, Carter Braxton. From Pennsylvania, Robert Morris, Benjamin Rush, Benjamin Franklin, John Morton, George Clymer, James Smith, George Taylor, James Wilson, George Ross. From Delaware, Caesar Rodney, George Reed, Thomas McKean. From New York, William Floyd, Philip Livingston, Francis Lewis, Lewis Morris. From New Jersey, Richard Stockton, John Witherspoon, Francis Hopkinson, John Hart, Abraham Clark. From New Hampshire, Josiah Bartlett, William Whipple. From Massachusetts, Samuel Adams, John Adams, Robert Treat Paine, Elbridge Gerry. From Rhode Island, Stephen Hopkins, William Ellery. From Connecticut, Roger Sherman, Samuel Huntington, William Williams, Oliver Wolcott. From New Hampshire, Matthew Thornton. So that's it. There's a lot of names in here, and I'm recording this in Kenya. Parents are Kenyan. My mom was born shortly after independence. My dad before independence. The people who were the independence fighters who got we also got our independence from Britain. That was, of course, about 180 years after America got their independence from Britain. But we still have families of the founding fathers' equivalents still alive and still involved in politics. You still know these people, like the Kenyatas, the Odingas. These names are known and familiar. There's a lot of other names out there that I'm not remembering right now, and should probably do a separate one, just reading the recent constitution of Kenya and discussing some of the parallels with that. But these people, these names out here, you might know, you might be American and have ancestry that actually descends from some of these people. You might know somebody who's a descendant of these people. I don't think they're all just like in this upper class of this politerati or literati where they're untouchable, because these people have disseminated within the population. Some of the families have maintained levels of prominence and status and wealth in certain ways from positioning themselves in this, but some of them have just kind of fallen off and they're just like regular average citizens. But yeah, some of the content in this, just think about what was in this Bill of Rights and think that was what they're talking about the British government back then. But what is the current government of the United States of America compared to some of the things that are in here? And I will be having mostly Americans on. I'm going to try to get some Americans on to talk about this and see what they think about their own government under this sort of situation in comparison to some of the things stated here in this Declaration of Independence. I'm going to say Bill of Rights, and I think I'm going to go to the Bill of Rights next and read that. And the Bill of Rights, for those of y'all who might not know, is just I'll read what they say here about it. Okay, so on September 25th, 1789, the First Congress of the United States proposed 12 amendments to the Constitution. The 1789 joint resolution of Congress proposing the amendments is on display in the rotunda in the National Archives Museum. 10 of the proposed 12 amendments were ratified by 3/4 of the state legislatures on December 15th, 1791. The ratified articles 3 through 12 constitute the first 10 amendments of the Constitution or the U.S. Bill of Rights. In 1992, 203 years after it was proposed, Article 2 was ratified as the 27th Amendment to the Constitution. Article 1 was never ratified. So this is the kind of thing where, like, some of y'all might know, like with the Bible being created, being put together, there were certain books that were removed and certain books were allowed in, and certain books of those have kind of leaked and people are aware of them. But I wonder how many of these constitutional conventions, how many other things have happened where, okay, this was brought up and it was kind of not accepted. Okay, so first of all, before we read this, what's your favorite Bill of Rights? What's your favorite amendment? And I think one thing to pay attention with these is, of course, the First Amendment, which is familiar to people, the Second Amendment as well. That whole way where like the First Amendment is the most important and the Second Amendment is there to kind of enforce or be able to carry out, give you the power to maintain that first. And there is an aspect of this where it builds upon each other. And all this also built upon the Constitution that, as I mentioned, I read in the previous week two of Made America 250 when I was reading for James Madison. So you can check that out as well. We'll also have conversations discussing that. But getting into this right now. Transcription of the 1789 Joint Resolution of Congress proposing 12 amendments to the U.S. Constitution. Congress of the United States began and held at the city of New York on Wednesday, the 4th of March, 1789. The conventions of a number of the states, having at the time of their adopting the Constitution, expressed a desire, in order to prevent misconstruction or abuse of its powers, that further declaratory and restrictive clauses should be added. And as extending the ground of public confidence in the government will best ensure the beneficent ends of its institution. Resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America, in Congress assembled, 2/3 of both houses concurring, that the following articles be proposed to the legislatures of the several states as amendments to the Constitution of the United States, all or any of which articles, when ratified by 3/4 of the said legislatures, to be valid to all intents and purposes as part of the said Constitution. Vis-a-vis, or viz. I don't know what the viz means here. Let me check. Okay, it's short for Latin videlicet, which means as follows. So continuing in this. Articles in addition to and amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America proposed by Congress and ratified by the legislatures of the several states pursuant to the 5th article of the original Constitution. Article the 1st. After the first enumeration required by the 1st article of the Constitution, there shall be one representative for every 30,000 until the number shall amount to 100, after which the proportion shall be so regulated by Congress, that there shall be no less than 100 representatives, no less than one representative for every 40,000 persons, until the number of representatives shall amount to 200, after which the proportion shall be so regulated by Congress that there shall not be less than 200 representatives, nor more than one representative for every 50,000 persons. If you remember, that first one has not been ratified, although the second one has been ratified. And recently there's some discussion of whether or not the people in Congress can trade and do things like that, spouses. So it's kind of interesting that this one is kind of in discussion as well as I'm recording this. Okay. Article the 2nd. No law varying the compensation for the services of the senators and representatives shall take effect until an election of representatives shall have intervened. Article the 3rd. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for all redress of grievances. And you see here, it's not free speech. And I know some people are like, it's free speech, it's free speech. It's freedom of speech, which is kind of a separate sort of thing. You have the freedom to say things, but it's not just like any speech it should be no cost to any speech. I think it's kind of the thing. You shouldn't just have equal access to say whatever you want in whatever sort of forum that you want, in my estimation. Now, if you're using like public airwaves, that's kind of a question now. Like, okay, there's some balance in there, but then why does the government have the public airways to begin with? And I'm getting into more analysis. I need to have conversations about these things and analyze them. But the first two that are the first two, because that was the one that was the third one proposed, but turned out to be the First Amendment there. And freedom of speech, not free speech. That's key. Article the fourth. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Article the fifth. No soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of its owner, nor in the time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. Article the sixth. The right of people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath and affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Article the seventh. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offenses to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb. Nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Article the 8th. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. Now, in this one, there is something, I have a bit of a bug. Like, you look at the percentage of actual cases in the United States of America, even though it has a more robust justice system than many other countries, but how many actually go to actual case court? Like, the courts, it's like 90% of them don't go to court. They're settled outside or arbitration, with external arbitration. Then I also have issue with, like, people suing the state, suing the government. So you were harmed by something done in the government, so you're going to sue the government, and this government's going to pay you back with money taxed from people. So you're like you're suing the people who had nothing to do with this besides having their money taken away. So there is that there. And another key thing is the same way you've had body cams now on police. Recently, they had that ICE shooting. They didn't have the body cams on, and that was ridiculous. You need to have those body cams on. And now there's a lot of criminals who are saying, a lot of people are saying, oh, these people were treated in a certain way. And then now you're seeing a lot of criminals acting in a certain way, a lot of people, suspects acting in certain ways. Oh, okay, maybe these people were acting in belligerent ways, but then the cops themselves are enforcement agents. But regardless, you have that situation of having body cams. That should also be there for the courts. I think it should also be there for public schools. All public services have the ability to have technology of cameras recording there, so the public can see how the money taken away from them is being spent and the services being provided are being done in a certain way. Why not have cameras in all these things that people can live stream and just check in on? Have like a C-SPAN type of thing, but one for the courts, one for the schools, one for like any other public service and whatnot, where you just have that where people can see. I think that's something that should be done. Okay. Article the 9th. In suits at common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of the common law. Article the 10th. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. Article the 11th. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Article the 12th. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Attest, Frederick August Muhlenberg, Speaker of the House of Representatives, John Adams, Vice President of the United States and the President of the Senate, John Beckley, Clerk of the House of Representatives, Sam A. Otis, Secretary of the Senate. So that's it. And the Bill of Rights follows that. It's pretty much the same thing. But yeah, that was it for it. And like I said, that 10th Amendment, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. That is a key thing that I don't know how many other constitutions have this kind of structure where they're saying, look, if it's not here, the government can't do it. Like, it's not like you can just do this, it's not there. So it's a key part, but where has it grown to now? Where has it grown to now? So this is it for Made America 250 with Thomas Jefferson. This is the third decade. Like I said, I'm going to break these up into, from 1776, breaking up in 10-year chunks, in decade chunks. There's going to be at least 25 of this. This is number 3. For now, if you've been watching the video version of this, is a speed drawing on the screen of Thomas Jefferson with the Made America hat. You can find the merchandise right now. It's with that. I'm trying to sort out to find like limited runs of some of these merchandises. I think if it's up on the Redbubble store, it'll probably stay there, but I still might cut it down to 250 there, but you can find them there. But I want to find a place. I'm trying to track down a location in the United States of America to print them. Maybe I'll find multiple places and then like each place can print a certain number, but I want to find one here in Kenya. I'm a bit busy right now with a few things, trying to get some things sorted out, but I'll be doing these on the regular. And once I can get that, I'll be, okay, limited runs for some of these, maybe just t-shirts and the hats, limited runs of those. I don't know. We'll see what happens with this. But let me know if you're American or if you're not American, whatever you are. I'm trying to sort out the difference between the American dream or nightmare from the reality that America is. So if you have certain things, when you think of America, what are some of the definitive people, places, and projects that you think made America? Let me know some of those things. I'm going to keep to my 25. Some of your ideas and choices might play into what I post up. I have a few of the months of the decade set out where I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But I might expand this series and add other people, places, and projects in this series as I go. But for right now, every Saturday, I'm going to be trying to post one of these. And then you can also find the merchandise and the links wherever you're listening to this. And yeah, so just let me know what you think of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution from the previous one, the Bill of Rights. America, United States of America, is a social construct, and part of that is a nation. And these were the key founding documents from the founding fathers that built the nation. And now we're going to get more into some more stuff about the people, the places, and the projects versus just like the governmental system that set up that socio-political entity, human construct thing that is the United States of America. That's 250 years old this year in 2026. After that start way back in 1776 and what led up to that. So yeah, that's it for now. Like, share, subscribe, guys, gals, and everybody else in between. Goodbye.